Welcome to the Metal Bob Live Podcast. I'm your host, Metal Bob. Today's show is brought to you by Legend Picks and also artist Jeremiah Kalleck. You can find links to our sponsors and more at the Metal Bob Live website. There you can also find links to the latest Metal Bob gear, including shirts, hoodies, and more. On today's show, I had the honor of speaking with Michael Beck, vocalist of the band Kings of Dust. He gets me caught up on all things Kings of Dust, and we also talk a little Eddie Van Halen. So sit back, have a listen, and enjoy the show. Thank you. Hello, this is Metal Bob here. We got Michael Beck on the phone from Kings of Dust. Michael, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, man.
So, hey, congratulations on the release of the self-titled Kings of Dust album. It's freaking fantastic. You already know where I stand with it.
I do, and I'm glad I know it. We really appreciate your support, man. It's been really cool. Very appreciated.
Oh, buddy, absolutely, man. It's one of the best records I've heard in a long time. It was kind of like a breath of fresh air for me, man, because there's so much out there. I mean, there's some great stuff out there, man, but this stuff here, it takes me back, man. You know, you guys captured that old, like late 70s sound. That's kind of what I got out of it, and I really enjoyed that.
Well, that's exactly where we were aiming. So that's great to hear. I mean, we're all kind of products of that time period anyway. And I don't know if we could write a record that didn't sound like that, but we decided to early on to concentrate on that bit of it because it's just natural. So, like most records that you do, you got to please yourself first. And we did, and we are just blown away by the response that the record has gotten from people that have it. It's just been really kind of overwhelming. I mean, you always want it to do well, but it's I don't know what they call it, critically acclaimed. That's a bad word, but I'm going to use it.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, that the thing starts off with Like an Ocean, man. And I think, all the way down to Keep the Spirit Alive, which I believe is the last track on the record. I mean, that thing from beginning to end, to me, is a masterpiece. I mean, I just truly enjoy it. I'm going to keep saying it because it truly is the best album, personally, that I've heard all year.
That's so great to hear, man. It really is. It really is.
So what's some of the updates with Kings of Dust? What's going on at the moment?
Well, we had a pretty good laid out plan when we released the record on March 13th, which was also the day of the shutdown. So our timing is impeccable.
Right. To say the least, right?
We couldn't have planned this. I mean, nobody could have, but it's just, we had plans of touring through the summer. We had some dates that were being thrown around through Oklahoma and Texas, and some up closer to the East Coast. And we even had some talk of going to Europe and maybe doing a run through Japan and just all kinds of stuff. And, of course, it just got all put on the shelf. So, we got this record that we're really proud of, and we weren't really able to do any of the plans we wanted. We planned on doing a video for the third single, which would have been What's the Other, and doing a full video for that during the first part of the summer, right before we went out on tour. And of course that didn't happen either. So, I'm sure we're like every other band out there. We're kind of, wondering what to do next. But in the meantime, this was back in April when we were just getting ready to put a live show together. We kind of looked at doing that, and we had got a set list together, and we're getting ready to dive in, and then realized that we weren't going to be using it anytime soon. So we sort of made the decision to either, we can kind of go through this set and nobody knows when we're going to use it, or Greg actually said, well, let's just start writing another record. And so we did. So we spent most of the summer writing. We're about 9 songs in, and, we're probably going to go in the studio, first part of next year and start tracking the second record.
Oh, that's great to hear, man.
So it's it's a kind of, it's a what else are you going to do type thing, but it's worked out well. We've been offered some, some of that, some of the live feed things and to do some of that kind of thing. And we kind of do one thing at a time. We make sure that we have done it and then we move on. So I know that's the way Greg and Jake kind of operated when they were in Badlands. I'm kind of used to doing the same thing in some of the other bands I've been in, where you don't go in and start writing and then drop it all and go do something else. You kind of do what you're doing, you finish it, and then you move on. So that's what we've kind of done. And the new record is, if you like the 70s kind of vibe from the first record, you're going to super dig the second one because it's probably more so.
Right. And like I said, it definitely, you guys definitely captured that. Uriah Heep kind of came to mind a little bit when the very first time I listened to that album, because, I always thought that was a great band, and they kind of.
I have no problems with that comparison whatsoever.
Yeah. But there's a lot going on there. That was just one of the bands I thought of when I first heard the album, but it goes on way beyond that, man. Like I said, it was, it's like nothing I've heard in a long time. Not without going back and listening to some of my old 70s and early 80s LPs. I haven't heard anything like that in a long time.
Well, and it's, again, that's kind of where we all live. We're kind of different pages of that same era. Both me and Ryan are a little more into the, Ryan's got more of he's really into the Sweet and the Babies, but he's also really into Deep Purple. He and Greg can just go on for hours about these obscure 70s bands that Jimmy and I are just looking at each other going, what? So they kind of are, they overlap a lot in that era, and in those bands. And then Ryan and I overlap a lot I'm a big fan of Babies. I'm a big fan of Sweet. I'm a huge Van Halen and Kansas fan. And then Jimmy kind of comes from a different perspective again, where he's got a lot of, Jeff Porcaro in him, to where he swings very Ian Pace-like, is what it reminds me of. But he's got an intricacy that Porcaro brought to his stuff. And so it's kind of a mixed bag, but when it works and it seems like it's working well, you don't really question it a whole lot.
Absolutely. So yeah, I know you had mentioned Van Halen, and that's actually one of the questions I had for you. I know that you, from some of the past interviews that I've actually listened to you, that you have been involved with, you mentioned Van Halen quite a bit. So how was the Eddie Van Halen news?
Well, I'm sure I'm along with most people of my age, where, even my sons, I have 2 sons, one 22 and one 32. And I tried to bring them up right. And my older son's actually a guitar player. In fact, they both play guitar. But they know who Eddie Van Halen is. In fact, my older son has him tattooed on his arm. So he knows all about him. They both know about him. But for guys of my generation, Eddie Van Halen is something that is very transcendent to even what I can explain to them. I remember the first time I heard Van Halen, I remember just, with my jaw on the floor. And a lot of guys my age were like that. And there was a point in time where he was absolutely king of the world, and everybody else lined up behind him. Everybody. I mean, there wasn't a guitar player that was doing anything that didn't get something from him at all. And you can't. I don't know if that'll ever be recreated.
Right. Definitely the respect factor for Eddie Van Halen is over the charts. I mean,
and it should be. I mean, Van Halen, and through when I was going to high school, was my favorite band for sure. You can't beat his. I mean, he's a great lead player. But his ability, and to me, his forte, always was in the way he played rhythm guitar and the way he wrote songs. I mean, that's. I know a lot of great lead players, but not a lot of guys that can write a song like Eddie Van Halen could.
Right.
And although I didn't enjoy the Hagar era nearly as much as I did the Roth era, because I thought they lost a little bit of grit. I think Sammy's a way better singer than David, but Dave brings, kind of the same thing. He brings something to the table that changed that position, and it's just undeniable. So I don't think you can explain it to a guy that isn't from our era what he meant to our era.
Right. Yeah. And like you said, to me, Sammy, I'm a huge Sammy Hagar fan. I mean, who ain't, right? But
Exactly.
There were two different versions of Van Halen, and they were both great in their own right. I mean, and that's kind of the way
I think that's true. Like I said, I enjoyed the Van Hagar era, but I was a huge Van Halen fan. So I went more DLR band because it still had that little, Eat 'Em and Smile and Skyscraper are just great records. And,
absolutely.
They're just unbelievable, and it's to me, and that's why I've mentioned Van Halen in past interviews. Roth is maybe, to me, the best lyricist ever. He doesn't get nearly enough credit for that, but you really listen to his lyrics, like in Mean Street and Unchained and Romeo Delight and I'm the One. I mean, those are top-notch lyrics that he's singing, and really doing them justice. I mean, it's a guy that, can just paint a picture with his voice.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that. Also, so let's get back to the Kings of Dust, if you don't mind. So is there a album title possibly floating around for the new album?
We've thrown a couple around. We've narrowed it down to a couple. Nothing's been solidified yet. Again, we kind of do one thing at a time. So I think as the songs start to progress and we kind of get a feel of where the record sounds as a whole, we'll probably nail some of those down a little deeper. But the songs themselves, like I mentioned, they're very, probably more so in that 70s vein than the first record. That first record spread its wings a little bit because the songs were written over such a long time between Greg and I. And this one's been written since May.
Absolutely.
So it's I think it's a little more cohesive record. It's got the same influences, but I think they run a little deeper even.
Right on. So now, for people that don't know a lot about you, would you like to tell everybody a little bit about you and some of the other bands that you've been in?
Well, sure. I'm originally from Nebraska. I'm from the Midwest. I was in, it's kind of weird. Growing up in the Midwest, it's good and bad. because you're in the middle of the country. So touring is actually a lot easier because you're in the middle of everything. You can go one way or the other. And every time that I was ready to pick up and move me and my family, or me, whichever the case was at the time that I was talking about it, every time that I was talking about moving to LA, and we talked about it a lot between me and my wife, I wound up getting a record deal where I was. So, there was no reason to move earlier. And I had, 3 or 4 record deals while I was in there. Manila Thrills was the first band that I had a deal with, and I toured behind, and we toured a lot. And the guy that did the record for Tora wound up doing our record, and great record, and still proud of it today. And then I got a deal with a band called Scary Harry, and another band right before I moved called Chronic in '93, and then I moved to Phoenix in '94, and I was actually in a band with Greg's brother Kenny, who was the bass player for Keel when I first moved here. And we kind of kicked it around for a while, and after that band dissolved in like the mid '90s, I really didn't, my day job is a recording engineer and producer. So I own a recording studio. I have since '99, and I really wasn't in another band. I kind of concentrated on the other side of it until this came up. And like I said, this has been kind of going on for a while. It didn't start out to be a, hey, we're going to form a band, we're going to do a record. None of that was really in the cards. It was, Greg knew a guitar player, I knew a drummer. I didn't even really know Greg. And we kind of got together with a different guitar player and a different drummer, and started writing some songs. And Greg, a lot of people don't know this, is a really good writer and a great arranger. And so what he brings to the table for me is, as soon as I've kind of always followed the bass player anyway. So once he starts playing, melodies come to my mind pretty quick. And that's why we really kept coming back to this. We actually dissolved the band for a while. We were having trouble finding the right drummer. We found some really good drummers and some great guys, but they just weren't the right drummer for the project until Jimmy walked in and really solidified it. And but this is, like I said, this is my first record since the mid '90s, and it wasn't anything that was planned. It just kind of came out, and it really the reason, and I've told Greg this 100 times, Greg's one of my best friends, but the reason that we're still playing together is because of these songs. I've told him before, hey man, I love you to death, but the reason we're still playing together is because of these songs. Otherwise, we'd just be friends and go into car shows.
Fair enough. No, the songs, man, jeez. Hey, don't get me started, man. I could talk about this album for hours, but.
Well, we really do appreciate that, man. That's really what it's about. We, the whole time that Greg and I were writing these, and some of the earlier stuff, like an Ocean was an earlier song, and Wolves was an earlier song, and Ugly was an earlier song. And I like the way, I do the majority of the lyrics and melodies. Greg has and does the majority of the writing or arranging. There's been some, guitar player here, or guitar player that we started with, that has kind of contributed also to the music side of it. And Ryan is contributing hugely to this next record, and did some on the last record as well with Yeah, That's Me and stuff. So those guys handle most of the music. I handle most of the lyric and melody, and I think we both respect where each other are coming from. It just kind of works. And again, a lot of that you don't question. You just let it happen.
Absolutely. So, I did hear also that some of the record stores have been having a little trouble keeping the record in, like they've been selling them as fast as they're getting them. Has that been a...
Well, yeah, that's true. And we had we're with Vanity Music Group and distributed through Sony. So we had a little problem in that when it first came out, and I mean, it's a problem, it's a great one to have, that, we're not Bon Jovi. So, and this is our first record. So most it was available in all, well, not all, but most record stores. And, but those stores aren't going to buy 12 copies. They're going to buy 2. And so it got distributed, and through that first weekend that it was available, and that first week, it sold pretty well. And most of the record stores sold out of what they had fairly quickly, which was really cool, and a huge surprise to us. But unfortunately, again, it was right at the beginning of the pandemic. I think that had a lot to do with it. And Sony kind of took a while getting things restocked, and so we lost a little bit of momentum there. And then, you're supposed to tour to support the record. We're not doing that either. So we were kind of hung out in limbo for a while, and come around May, it kind of finally kicked back in, and stores have it again. So you should be able to find it in most record stores, but you can always go to our website, which is www.kod.band. And there's a whole merch page there, and you can get stickers and T-shirts, and of course the record as well.
Awesome. Very cool, man. Is there anything else, Michael, that you would like to promote at this time, or anything else you would like to discuss?
Well, I wish I could tell you a bunch of dates that were coming up.
Well, it's going to happen, man. It's going to happen.
It's got to. I mean, that's one of the reasons that we didn't do any of that live stream stuff is, honestly, this band has never played a live show. We have not ever played a live show. And until we started going through, all of the stuff, we've done the tracking in the studio, but we had never played a live show, and we are itching to do that. And no more so than now, because we were itching back in April. So I'm really hoping that happens soon. I hope to be, out there touring on both records here next year. I mean, that's kind of the plan right now. We're gonna get this next record done, get it tracked, and just kind of keep moving on with the mixing and mastering and doing all that end of it until this thing, gets buried. And then, well, I guess we're going to tour on 2 records, which isn't a bad thing.
Absolutely not, man.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that. I think we all are really just chomping at the bit to get out there and play live, because that's really what this band is kind of fueled on.
Yes, and I 100% agree, man. I can't wait to witness that record live, man. I can only imagine.
Well, most of the first record was, especially the rhythm section with Greg and Jimmy. Most of what you hear on that record, I mean, I don't think there was a third take on much of anything, and I know there wasn't a fourth. So most of what you hear on that record, there's we went back in and overdubbed the vocals, and we overdubbed some guitar stuff, but the initial rhythm section is mostly 1 or 2 takes front to back and very little punch in. So it's really set up to be a live band, and I think we're all well aware of that.
Well, brother, man, it's been great talking to you, man, and congratulations, on the success of the Kings of Dust album. I've seen all the great reviews out there, and it's definitely getting a lot of attention, man, which it rightfully deserves.
Well, I like I said, we really do appreciate that, man, and I, to have it acclaimed the way it has been just a joy, because, like I say, you kind of, you write what you're going to want to hear, and you hope everybody else likes it as well. And we've been really fortunate in that, in the way the record has been received, and when you kind of do something out of the norm and outside the box, and there's a lot of bands from our era that are doing records, but they don't sound like 70s records, and we wanted that was a clear-cut thing from the very beginning, not only from the songwriting era, standpoint, but from the recording standpoint as well, and from the mixing standpoint. So we're glad that it has come over just like we intended it, which is just a sheer joy.
Absolutely, man. Well, brother, it's been a pleasure, man. I really appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you, man. I mean, having it, the best of 2020 is just icing on the cake. So yeah, thank you for that.
Absolutely. And once again, everyone, we got Michael Beck on the phone from Kings of Dust. Get out there and check him out. Was it www.kod.band?
That was it. You got it.
All right. Try. Get out there and check it out. Kings of Dust is available now. Michael, you take care of yourself, brother. I'll be in touch.
Hey, thanks so much, man. Very much appreciate it.
Have a good night, buddy. Bye. That concludes today's episode of the Metal Bob Live podcast. Please check out our website, and also please subscribe to the Metal Bob Live podcast. Thank you for listening. Metal Bob out.